When you've had a long week and want to mix it up with something new and interesting to eat, try Blue Apron's 2 or 4 serving menu plans with those hard-to-find ingredients sure to spice up your weekend. With 60-plus options each week, you can choose from an ever-changing mix of high-quality meat, fish, vegetarian, WW recommended, and wellness offerings. Order now and get $110 off across your first 5 orders when you visit blueapron.com/unique.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur podcast. I'm Matt, and back again this week. I'm joined by Jamie. Jamie, how are you this evening?
Glad to be back. Yay!
Yes, I know. It worked out. I know we were just talking about this, the life in the restaurant industry where you just never know when they're going to call you back in. And fortunately, I know last week I wasn't able to go Thursday when you were able to go Thursday, but not Wednesday. This week, though, we were able to both go Thursday. And I think this was an important week to do it because, I don't remember. Did you contact me to say you wouldn't be able to do Wednesday? I think it may have been after I heard that Roddy Piper passed away. So it was kind of like, okay, well, yeah, that's, if we can do the show on Thursday, I want to do a movie in honor of him. I think it may have been around the same, it might have almost been, simultaneous or at the same time.
I don't remember, but I do know that it worked out. So
Yeah, exactly. So again, you heard I put some bagpipe music in there to start the show a bit. We were talking about this as well. The news of Roddy Piper's passing was very quick and very shocking, and for me, I didn't really know. It wasn't expected. And so, when Jen was telling me, I think I was on my computer getting some work done, and she was on the couch, and she said, do you know Roddy Piper? It's like, oh my God, of course, yes. But I knew when she asked me, I said, this can't be good. There's one of two things, right, that a celebrity can do nowadays. When somebody asks that question, they can either committed horrible crimes or be a racist, or they could be dead. And unfortunately, Mr. Piper was the latter, which is too bad. But
so it's either that or they found something questionable on his hard drive.
Right, exactly that
I'm
too.
looking at you, Jared.
Yes, oh man, I know he's in rough shape. Everybody seems to be in rough shape right now, but I guess it's at least they're still with us, whereas Mr. Piper is no longer with us, which is sad. And the first thing I did was I went to my blog and clicked on his name in the tags because he is one of our inaugural Hall of Famers. So he's got his own little tag right there on the front of the page, and I clicked on it, and this one, Back in Action, was one of the first ones to come up. And of course, after the fact, I realized, well, as I was watching this one, I realized that probably something like Hell Comes to Frogtown or something like that might have been a little bit better for this, just because it is a little bit more of a Billy Blanks movie than it is a Piper film, but it's still got plenty of Piper in it just the same. And I was going to say, yeah, Brian mentioned the same thing. It was just all of this happened so quickly that I wasn't, I was hit unawares. So it was very tragic news and very sudden. I mean, I was just listening to his podcast. He did a podcast with the Sklar brothers, their Sklar Country one, and he was talking about his new podcast. He was doing a form of Piper's Pit in a podcast form. So he was, he had projects that he was working on even up until his passing. So it's really sad and really abrupt news. So yeah, so and for me, he's always been one of my favorites. I've always loved him. So yeah, so it's disappointing to see him go.
Yeah, and he was young too.
Mm-hmm.
Which was really sad. But initially Brian's like, "Well, you guys should be doing They Live," and I'm like, They Live is my personal favorite.
Right.
Piper, and I just love that movie. Period.
Yeah.
But everyone is doing They Live.
Mm-hmm.
It's like as soon as the news broke, all like every podcast in the universe
Yes.
suddenly started covering They
Yeah.
Live. Which there's that's a fantastic film, but he did do other things,
Yes.
and so I think it's a good idea that we did something else. And then, of course, Brian was like, "Well, then you should at least do Hell Comes to Frogtown."
Right, which
Like,
we should have.
ah.
And it's not like we can't rectify that. We could always do Hell Comes to Frogtown later on. I don't know why. I knew this one was on YouTube, and I wanted to make sure it was one we could both watch. Both watch legally. I think that's the problem with They Live, is I don't know if it streams anywhere legally. That was a big reason why that one I also wanted. But also, like you said, that everybody's doing They Live, and this one fits the blog more. But I think Hell Comes to Frogtown is even more so, because it is probably up there. It might be my favorite Piper film. So I feel like I probably did drop the ball in that one.
No, I don't think so, because I had never seen this film,
Mm-hmm.
and so now I have reason to. I didn't even honestly, I'd never even heard of it, and so when you mentioned it, I didn't realize that it was a Billy Blanks film.
Right.
Which, hey, I need to see Billy Blanks doing martial arts on screen
Right.
is not something anyone ever said ever.
Mm-hmm.
But but I'm just kidding. I don't. Tybo is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
he is an awesome martial artist. I am not, I'm not taking that away from him at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of funny. I had no idea. I knew nothing about this film, nothing, and
Yes.
so it was exciting to me to see a Piper film that I didn't know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one of the things I enjoy about doing this show, is because of you. I frequently end up watching movies I've never seen before.
Right.
So, nothing wrong with that. If we had covered They Live, that would just be me talking about They Live again, which I have done in the past, and me watching it again, which I do anyway, so that's not a problem. But I like doing things that I've never done, and I like covering new stuff, or at least stuff that's new to me. So I think it worked out well.
Yeah.
Will I revisit it? I don't think so.
Yeah,
but
this might not be. I mean, for me, this is like I own it on VHS. Even I am, for me, one thing I like about this film, more than to maybe make it kind of a fitting tribute to Roddy Piper, is that unlike Hell Comes to Frogtown or They Live, where Piper is the star, he's the main guy. This film this one mirrors his wrestling career in a way that, when you think about his wrestling career, he was the best heel of all time. He was the ultimate heel. And, the heel's job is to prop up the big guy, right, the star. And when you think of the first WrestleMania, he did that as well as anybody in the history of the sport. That's why he's known as the greatest heel ever. We've since gotten a sense of what Hulk Hogan is as a star. And I'm not saying he wasn't a great hero in the show, and he was a good heel himself when he was in the WCW. But he didn't quite have that something that Roddy Piper has. Roddy Piper is like
racism?
Well, right, exactly. Yes, that part of it. Even though Piper did paint himself black one time, I think too. So he's but it's Piper is that ultimate straight man, right? You think of the great straight men of all time, and they prop up whoever the goofball is, and they sort of in a sense they take a back seat. I mean, Piper never won the big crowns. He never won the big the heavyweight titles or any of the big ones. I think he won a few of the smaller ones here and there in the WWF. But he was the one that made WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania, what it was, and which propelled the whole I don't know if it's sports or sport entertainment into the what it was. And you see a lot of what made Piper great as a wrestler in this film, because he's got the charisma, he has the acting chops, as in a way to have fun. He's able to have fun and be this big no nonsense cop going out there getting constantly getting taken off the case, and they didn't ask him to turn in his gun and badge, but everything else was the same in that respect. But then there's Billy Blanks, who just does that, at that time especially, really did not have the ability to act, and I don't know that he ever really fully got it, because you went,
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Yeah, to me, the most standout thing about him here, I mean, obviously his martial arts talent, and like I said, I'm not taking that away from him at all. That's what he does. That's what everyone knows him for.
Right.
Well, that and Tybo, but
yes.
but the most standout thing about him, apart from that, to me, was his hair. And I could not stop looking at it, because in the past decade or so, or maybe even I guess even more than that, probably the last 15 years or so, no one has seen him with hair. I mean, It's just, you're used to Billy Blanks being bald.
Yeah.
I say that 5 times fast.
Yeah.
And so when he first comes on screen, I was like, oh, look at the hair.
Yeah.
But it's already trying to, it's like, it's already trying to escape back off his forehead. And so his hairline was just like pretty receded. And I don't know if that was something like if he was balding or if that was just his natural hairline, because I'd never seen him like that before. So I was mesmerized by this hair the whole time, and every time he's on screen. That and the awesome noises he makes when he is fighting, which is just it's so funny to me. It's like, I used to work next to the tennis complex when I worked at the University of Georgia. And it is amazing to me some of the noises that tennis players make when they're, you'll walk by during practice or like during a tournament, because they would also have the big tournaments there, like the college tournaments, they would have them there, and which was a nightmare because my parking lot was right next to the tennis complex, and so it would screw up parking for the entire week they were doing the tournaments, and just pissed me off. But anyway, as you're walking by, you just hear, and I'm like, good Lord, like they're summoning the energy from deep within their soul, and that's just the whole time I'm watching this, I'm cracking up, because he's just these like animalistic, guttural just noises when he's fighting, and I'm like, he is all in. That dude is all into this, which kept it fun. Notice that Roddy Piper worked in some wrestling moves too.
He did.
A few of them. They had to be. There's probably like a checklist. I know that when they made They Live during the fight scene, and just actually watched a thing about this the other day, and they were talking about during the fight scene for They Live, there were 3 specific wrestling moves that they had to choreograph into the fight scene that he did with Keith David, and I am picturing them doing the same thing for this movie. It's like, okay, if Roddy Piper's going to be in this movie, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this at some point.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I will watch him do anything. You mentioned earlier that he has charisma, and you were exactly right about that. I love every second he's on screen. He just has this, he always had this face that just seemed so, even if he was like screaming or yelling or being mean or, attempting to me, it just never came off that he was a bad person or like a mean person, because he just has this genial face. I don't know. I can't. He just lights up, and whenever he's on screen, it just makes me happy, because he is just oozing charisma, and I love him. I am just crazy about him, and that was a lot of fun watching him do this. I wish we had gotten more of him in this movie. Although I do think you said it earlier, we did get a good solid chunk of him, and I agree with that. I think that more Roddy Piper is never a bad thing, so I would always want more. But I do think we got, even though this is clearly a Billy Blanks film, I think we got quite a bit of Piper, and so definitely enough for it to count for us doing a tribute for him.
It,
I think.
yeah, I mean, I when I think of myself growing up, watching wrestling, he was always the heel. And so one thing that when I was young, when I was I guess when I think about myself, early high school, like that period, I almost didn't. I always had trouble embracing. I would kind of ignore that Piper did action movies. I would watch some of them. Some of them I got a kick out of, and of course, They Live. I mean, everybody loved They Live in high school. But it wasn't until I got into college and I met someone who talked about how him and his friends would go out and get every Piper film they could, and they kind of saw it as a joke thing. That I really started to embrace Piper's action films, his low budget ones like these, like the Back in Actions, where he got to be a hero as opposed to being the heel, but yet he brought that same charisma, that same sense of timing and ability that made him so great as a wrestler. The fact that he brought that into these action roles that were really, I mean, Back in Action, like you said, it was generic, right? That's probably the best way to describe it. And without Piper,
Oh, they ticked all the boxes.
yeah.
I mean, it was just. I mean, you know how we jokingly talk about, and we did this a lot early on. We haven't really mentioned it much recently, but we haven't been doing a whole lot of action. I mean, we've been kind of all over the place lately. But you know how we've always talked about there's generic action plot number 1.
Yes.
Or generic action plot number 2, or whatever. And this one is just, I mean, even though I have never seen this film before, I have seen this film before.
Yes.
About 150 times.
Yeah.
It's just because Billy Blanks is, he's what, ex-Special Forces or ex-something?
Ex-Special Forces cab driver.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Ex-Special Forces turned cab driver. He's out of that. His sister gets involved with these gangsters.
Yeah.
And then there's a deal that goes wrong. Some cops get killed and some mess in the beginning. I mean, we just jump right in the beginning. I mean, there is a gun battle like in the first 15 seconds of this movie. And I kept checking the thing going, did we miss something? If it hadn't been for the credits still going, I would have thought that maybe somehow I was watching the middle of the movie.
Right.
Because we seriously just jumped right in. And I'm like, is this all right? Well, okay, there are the credits. I guess this is how it be. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to worry about it starting slow, because that's not an issue. You are jumped right in there. And then you just kind of have to play a little catch up trying to figure out what the hell is going on, because the characters already know, but you have to kind of figure out what's happening. And then what's happening is that Billy Blank's sister or his younger sister is involved. She's in love with this gangster, and because of all the crap that happens in the beginning, good luck with that. Now they want to kill her.
Right.
And so he's trying to protect her. Meanwhile, Piper is a cop he is a ticking time bomb. He's got a short fuse. He's what I mean. Think of any cliche, thing that you could apply to, like Mel Gibson, and then apply that to his character. It's just like any cop movie you've ever seen where the cop is, well, I can't think of any of the, there's those phrases, basically ticking time bomb, but he actually called him that in the movie.
Loose cannon?
Loose cannon.
Loose cannon?
Yes. He's one of those. And so you've got this loose cannon cop and this ex-Special Forces turned cab driver guy, and they're basically both after the same people, but they end up kind of getting in each other's way all the time, and and it's just you've seen it. You trust me, you've seen it, and there's absolutely no shock or surprise, like no wonder, like not at any point are you ever concerned that anything's really going to happen to any of these characters, because you know the end of this movie before you get to it. You know how it's going to turn out. There is no other way for it to turn out. I was kind of hoping one of them would end up getting killed or something, just to throw a wrench in the works, so I could say, hey, well, at least they did that, and I wasn't expecting that. But
Well, we'll
no,
see.
we didn't really get that.
See,
Oh, and I forgot about the reporter.
yes,
There's
Bobby
there,
Phillips. Yes, good old
there's
Bobby.
the reporter that Piper clearly has a history with, which didn't go so well. So they're snarky to each other all the time.
Yes.
And she employs midgets to give
Give her
to give
tips. They
her
help her out.
information.
They,
Oh, it's hilarious.
now, yeah,
But
yes. Now she's Bobby Phillips. And she has done. I want to say she's done. I don't know if she's done any with Piper, but she's done of these. Was it Shapiro Glickhouse? I can't remember the producers' names, but she's done a good amount of these kind of films. She does them with what's his face there, Billy Blanks. She's done other Billy Blanks ones, and also uh, oh man, I can't think of the guy's name right now, and I am going to get in so much trouble for forgetting this guy's name. The there's a producer who also stars in his films, Jalal Merhi, that's his name. She's done a fair amount of his films as well. So she does these kind of these bad actioners in the '90s, and you do get a kind of a sense of like, well, okay, that's her. Yeah, and again, she just like Billy Blank, she's being propped up by Piper. I mean, it's a fascinating thing. It's kind of it's like whenever I would watch some of those really bad DTV, newer DTV flicks from from the late 2000s, with like De Niro or even Forrest Whitaker acting opposite like 50 Cent or somebody like that. You get this sense like this is De Niro, and it's palpable, the difference in quality, and Piper, you get that throughout this film as well too, and it's interesting to see it even at that level, that Piper was such a special talent, that to that level, that when we see him in this film we can say like he's got the whole crew, the whole cast right on his shoulders, and he's going to carry them from the beginning to the end. And every once in a while Billy Blanks is going to jump off his shoulders and do some really great fight scenes, so give Piper a break, but for the most part Piper is carrying this thing through, and it's him and Billy Blank's fight scenes. Of course, Piper had great fight scenes as well, but it's the actions in Piper that carry this thing and get us from one end to the other. And so for me, I like, I think I'm a little more forgiving of the paint by numbers quality, because I'm like that person, the people who really like musicals. And even if they're really bad musicals, that you go to their house and you look in the DVD collection and they have them, even the really bad musicals.
yeah,
I'm the same way. I'm like, the plot can be crap, but hey, there's some fun musical numbers, or in this case, some fun action numbers, and they're frequent enough. There's one thing that this film, even though the plot was a little convoluted, they definitely did their best to not let it get in the way of the action. They were gonna give us action every 10 to 15 minutes or so, which was good. I would take that. I just I could have used more Piper in the action. I could have used. I think the story would have been better had it been more of a team up buddy film like the cover gave us.
yeah, and that's kind of what I expected them to sort of morph into that.
Mm-hmm.
Like once they figured out who each other were,
Right.
and what their goal was, I was expecting it to morph into a buddy thing, and it kind of did, but not till way the end.
Right.
And what we got was a lot of Piper running off in this direction, Billy Blanks being off in this direction,
Mm-hmm.
doing completely different things, and so we would just kind of switch back and forth,
Yeah.
which was kind of weird and interesting. I will say the action was entertaining, because Billy Blanks can fight. I mean, there's no question about that. Like he can, and Piper is fun.
Mm-hmm.
So the action and Piper, I agree completely, totally ran this film. And if it hadn't been for those things, then I wouldn't have been able to like stay through the entire thing. I would have just
Right.
said fuck this and given up. But luckily, because of those two things, it didn't matter that I didn't give a shit about the plot,
Right.
which I flat didn't. I mean, I really
No,
didn't.
no
care.
reason
And
to. Yeah.
I would honestly tune out until something came on the screen that I was like, oh, this is where. I mean, you know how like you're doing other things, but it's running in the back of your mind, so you still know what's happening, but I'm not engrossed in it. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sitting there with my chin on my hand, unblinking because I can't miss a second. That
Mm-hmm.
didn't happen with this movie. It was more like I'm gonna play some Candy Crush over here, and then when I hear the action going on, then I'm looking up.
Right.
When we're at the, when we're doing the scenes with Billy Blank's little sister and her boyfriend, I don't care.
Right.
He's like, I don't give a shit. But then when Roddy Piper's on screen, then yeah, here I am. Or when I hear some fighting going on, there I am.
Right.
And without those things, I wouldn't have cared at all. So those were strong at least. And I mean, I think people don't realize, or maybe they don't necessarily think that the reason that Piper is as entertaining as is he is a talent,
Yeah.
and in order to be an effective wrestler, you have to be a good actor.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not, then it just, I mean, and obviously, wrestling is known for being over the top. It has always been that way. You've got Dusty Rhodes, you've got
Right.
like the Hulk
Yes.
Hogan's, they're
Mm-hmm.
really over the top, and that's what sells it
Right.
when they're wrestling. But, they clearly have a lot of personality. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do that if you don't have personality,
Yeah.
and you have to have some form of talent to be able to pull that off. If you're going to be just some big hulking guy who is in great shape, but you have no personality whatsoever, then you better hope that they write you a character who is completely silent because you won't be able to do anything, entertaining wise like Piper did. So it's clear that he had some kind of talent, and then he definitely shows it here. And then like They Live, and I mean like
Yeah.
the with um going back to They Live. I mean, the line that everyone loves from that movie, the the chew bubblegum and kick ass line,
Mm-hmm.
was totally him, and that right there is a perfect example of how he interjects his own personality into what he does, and he can just be there. He can just be on screen, and it's enough for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got
That's.
cat hair on my mouth. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. No, I
Baby cat came rubbing up, and I
no,
was
that's
like,
what they
nah.
do. That's what they do. That's the job of the cat, right? No,
She is determined to make an appearance on every single show we do.
she
She's
wants
either
to get in
muting
there
my
some
mic
way.
or rubbing on my face.
Yeah, yeah. There was another one that the two of them did together. Billy Blanks and Piper called Tough and Deadly. Um,
Oh, I
and,
have not seen that.
Yeah, and that one I think it was a little bit better than this. It had more action, but I mean I love this one as well. But I think it was more of a buddy picture. It was more of them. You want to talk about contrived plots, and that one, Billy Blanks plays a CIA operative who's drugged and has amnesia, wakes up in a hospital bed, and I guess he's wanted for a crime. And Piper plays a PI. So it's almost like Midnight Run. He's like a PI who sees a bounty to try to take him in, and it's like Midnight Run, only it's an action film with a lot of fighting. Is that the film Midnight Run? Is that the one with uh, Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin?
Is that
I don't know if I have the right.
what's the one? Well, oh shoot! Because when you first said that, I was thinking of no, that's Midnight Cowboy. Never.
Yes, right. No, different. Yes,
Totally different movie.
yes. So Piper, and Blanks were like, Piper and Blanks. They were like, they were like John Voight and Dennis Hoff and oh yeah, Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's what for a second there I was kind of like I was actually trying to picture
Yes.
Roddy Piper as like this
It,
hooker,
yeah. If,
like
if
this gigolo.
if that movie really had been that plot, that would have been the film we would have done tonight for sure. So, but
Oh man, if only that existed,
yes.
that would have been
Oh,
great.
and unfortunately, it can't be made now, which is sad again because we no longer, Mr. Piper is no longer with us.
He is gone, yeah. So my dreams of seeing the Roddy Piper version of Midnight Cowboy are gone.
It's too bad, yes, and it would have been rated PG-13 now based on today's ratings as opposed to X as it was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, we were talking about him being a talent, and what he did, what he did as a wrestler. It is an art that it's a difficult art to pull off well. And I mean, I remember Hulk Hogan did it. With WCW, he became the heel for a while as Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And I mean, he was just kind of ridiculous. It was just a goofball thing. Whereas Piper, I mean, again, Piper generated the kind of heat, they talk about red heat and white heat, where red heat is you get everybody angry about you, but angry because they want to tune in and see you get your ass kicked by Hulk Hogan or whoever it is. Whereas white heat is where you anger the crowd so much that they want to kill you while you're outside.
That kind of sounds like a prison movie.
Doesn't it? Red heat and white heat. And wrestling,
Yeah.
that's probably going to be Vince McMahon's hearing that right now, and he's going to take one of his wrestling stars and cast them in that film, I'm sure. So we'll be on the lookout for that pretty soon, Mr. McMahon, and let us know. Jamie and I will be happy to review that one here for the podcast when it's on Netflix. Red Heat and White Heat, starring. Do you know wrestlers now? Do you know any names of any?
Actually, no. I used to be a big wrestling fan back in the '80s. I'm dating myself completely there, but it was like in the mid '80s when I guess every kid goes through that stage. I don't know but just about every kid I knew went through that stage where you were like a big wrestling fan, like around like 10 or 11 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back when Glow
Yes.
was
Oh,
on,
they were
and
the best.
I was an avid Glow watcher. I loved the shit out of that that TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, speaking of movie, there is a documentary about Glow
Oh.
that I watched, and which was really good. I mean, the doc was really good, but then it showed clips from the show and all of that, and I'm looking back, going, man, I really liked this.
Of course you did. Yes, you did. Yes.
But that was back when I was a big wrestling fan, and I was a big Glow fan, and I was just, I was all into it. But today, I don't have a clue.
No.
And I got to tell you, something I found out is that horror podcasters and wrestling fans are like the same thing.
Yes.
It's so weird. So many horror podcasters that I know are also like huge wrestling fans, and so because of their Twitter feeds that I have, and then knowing them on Facebook, every time there's a Raw, every time there's any kind of a big event, I know all about it, even though I don't watch it because it's just the Twitter feed is just popping.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I had no idea that there was such a connection between horror fans and wrestling fans. It was
I know.
bizarre.
I was going to say Fred the Wolf.
Names. I don't know any names.
Yeah, I was going to say Fred the Wolf, who we had on. I think it was the third ever episode of the show. Maybe we watched Reanimator. I can't remember what we watched with him, but Fred the Wolf is a huge wrestling fan, and so if I'm ever on Twitter on a Monday night, I just get because I think he's the only one that I follow out of his group that talks about wrestling, but I just see a whole line of his with Raw and the hashtag, hashtag
and they get
Raw.
mad about it.
Yeah.
They get really upset.
Yes. Well, and they talk.
Like, oh, you've just ruined it.
Yes. Well, and they talk about like one of the new guys that right now is this guy Roman Reigns is the one that was kind of picked to be like the next Hulk Hogan type, the next big guy, and they talk about he's getting what they call like go away heat. Like I talked about red heat and white heat. Go away heat is like they boo you because they just don't want you to get off the ring, not because they want to kill you or they want to see you get beat by somebody. They're booing you because they don't want to see you. And I've heard that like this guy's starting to generate that, which is bad for the brand. And
that's like a death knell.
I know exactly.
Because at least if they hate you, then you're still drawing interest.
Right. Right.
It's like a shock jock.
Yes.
What good is if a shock jock pisses people off? Then that's awesome. If a shock jock has people on his side, that's also awesome. But if a shock jock just bores people until they turn the station, then you're kind of missing,
right
point there.
Well, and that's what Piper did that revolutionized wrestling with his Piper's Pit segment in the early 80s, which carried through. But there's that iconic moment where he smashed Jimmy Superfly Snuka over the head with a coconut, which was again really like borderline right on that white heat red heat line there. but that he was the first one to show that wrestlers had personalities, and they could be the ones doing the interviewing, and they could be the ones hosting the segments. They didn't have to be the one that showed up saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get you this, whoa, watch out for me, this, I'm coming for you, so and so." He could do the whole thing, and
What are you gonna do?
right, exactly. He showed that wrestlers actually had that kind of personality and could do that, which was revolutionary. I mean, I know for me, woo, yes, Ric Flair, exactly. I wanted to mention one of the last things I saw Piper in was a wife swap, celebrity wife swap, where he and Ric Flair swapped wives. Which you can imagine, Piper lives out in he lived in Saskatchewan, in rural. Saskatchewan with his wife and kids, and they had a very down to earth lifestyle. And then there's Ric Flair with his wife and their how much money
Did
they
his
spent.
wife go, woo?
She didn't, unfortunately, but he did, and I think
That would be awesome.
yeah, but
if you got a whole family of them.
a whole family of woo. Yes. No, I always, we always talk about it when we're kids and we have our wrestling story. My one that I'll always remember is I was a huge wrestling fan as a child, and I remember when I was in 5th grade, the Portland Civic Center, the way it would work is you'd have the big event in Boston. There'd be some kind of big event that would happen in Boston, and then an offshoot of that big event would go up to Portland and do a night. And you wouldn't get a lot of big names, but there'd be enough there that it'd be worth seeing. So my dad took me up there to the Portland Civic Center to watch wrestling, and there was this guy called the Duke of Dorchester, which is Dorchester, Massachusetts. He was the guy that would only do the local New England events, and he had this messy hair, and he was missing teeth, and he'd pretend to bite the other guys or whatever, and he was filling in because I believe Mr. Perfect couldn't make it because of the snow. So I missed out on Mr. Perfect. And I guess the Duke of Dorchester, I don't know if he was fighting Hacksaw Jim Duggan or somebody like that, but the way it worked was, that you had the ring in the middle of the hockey, where the hockey ice would have been, and the guys would walk through, your basic kitchen doors, with the window, and they'd swing the swinging doors with the window. So the Duke of Dorchester, he got destroyed by Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hacksaw Jim Duggan just took him down, and so he's done. The fight's over. He's staggering out of the ring, and so I've got the swinging doors have the window, so I can see the Duke just stagger through the doors. The moment he got on the other side of that door, he stood upright and just moseyed right on out of there. And I just. That was it. That was my moment. That was my wrestling. Oh, I'm going to
finding out that Santa Claus isn't real.
Yes. Well, see, and for me, finding out that Santa Claus wasn't real was a different thing, because I felt like I'd been lied to my whole life by my parents. I felt like I could never trust my parents, and I still have not quite gotten over that. I still have trust issues with my parents.
You took it hard.
I took it very hard, and the other thing was I was fortunate. I had younger siblings, because my fear at that time. I don't know if you think about when you're growing up, your parents get crap for presents. They get kitchen utensils and sweaters and socks and ties, right? Exactly. And I thought, oh my God, there's no Santa Claus.
Old Spice, in the case of my dad, he never ran out of Old Spice or tube socks. That was.
Yeah, and same with my dad. We get him things like that, lobster traps, crap, all kind, stuff that kids don't want. It's not He-Man figures, and so I was really concerned that one, that I was lied to by my parents. I felt like they'd played this huge joke on me. Actually, is what it was. And all the adults had played this joke on me. But the other thing was, I was afraid I was going to get bad presents. But I realized I had younger siblings, and my mom loves the whole Santa Claus thing. She would pull that thing. She would let that thing go as long as she could. If we were 30 and we still believed in Santa, she would be fine with that. So I realized I could kind of almost blackmail my mom by saying, well, if you don't want to keep getting me the Santa Claus presents, I could just tell the kids, my younger siblings, that there is no Santa. That was. I didn't really say that, but I kind of hinted that was how that was going to work. And of course I never realized that there is no point where you stop getting cool presents. You just, there's a point where you no longer want He-Man figures, and you kind of need the socks because the ones you have holes in them, and it's good to get the socks as presents. So it was a different story, but I still kind of have trust issues. The wrestling one was different because the wrestling one, I felt like I was the moron for not understanding that it was fake the whole time. I felt like everybody else knew, and I was just dumb enough to believe. So it was a different kind of a realization there, where I was just like, man, everybody was right. It is fake. What was I thinking? I'm 10 years old. I should know better than this. Next I'm gonna buy. What else am I gonna believe in? God. Some. The resurrection of Jesus Christ. This is
That's
crazy.
just silly.
This is silly stuff. I'm gonna believe that this some guy was on a boat for 40 days and when it rained or whatever, and he had all these animals in a big boat. Next you're gonna So yeah, so I that's how I felt. I felt like I believed in something that everybody else knew, and it wasn't like wrestling really came out there and said we're real. They've never said that. They've never said we're real. I just bought it. It's believed it. So that's my big wrestling story. Now I did continue to watch for a little bit after that. But I don't know. I never quite felt right watching it after that again, because I'd be like, oh man, they chose who was going to win that. They knew all along it was going to be the Ultimate Warrior or Hulk Hogan. I've never quite been able to get into it on that level of it's the soap opera or it's drama.
No, neither have I, and I think that that's kind of when I got out of my wrestling stage was when I realized that it was all scripted and there was really, I mean, even though they can truly be, they can injure themselves, and they are actually doing physical feats, and all of that is in fact true. So I don't want to, and they're all athletes. I don't
Right.
want to. I don't want to diminish what they do physically, but I mean, we all know that they all know who's going to win before it
Yes.
starts, and for some reason, some people can still be interested in that. Like they like the drama of it, they like watching it unfold.
Right.
I never could get to that point with it,
Yeah.
and so it just kind of bored me after I found out that it wasn't real, and I was like, oh, okay, then what, why do I care?
Right.
So because I wasn't in it for the drama. I was in it for, like I watch any other sport. Um, and what's funny to me is that I know grown people, who will fight you to the death if you try to tell them that wrestling isn't real. They are
Yes.
just like, oh, God damn it, it's real. It's real. They got so mad. And I'm like, but, and it's like, oh, he was bleeding. And I'm like, well, yeah, they hurt themselves. I mean,
Yes.
they really do put their bodies on the line for what they do. And I respect them for that. But come on.
Yeah.
I mean, do you seriously believe every bit of that drama? It's like, there are things that inevitably always happen. Someone's always going to come and snatch the microphone and start threatening someone and start screaming at them.
Yes.
Someone is always going to climb into the ring when they're not supposed to be there. So you've got, he's not even supposed to be here. Oh my God, what is he doing?
Yes.
He needs to get out of the ring right now. I mean, that happens every time. And it's like, you're going to tell me that this is real? I mean, come on.
Well, and I will say, like in college, I got back into it a little bit because I had friends who were into it, and at that time, Stone Cold Steve Austin was a big deal, and he was a really interesting one. He was he changed because he was the first one who was like an actual heel that people were rooting for. People wanted the heel to win, and that really changed the way wrestling went after that. But one thing that I always liked Stone Cold Steve Austin's personality. I always thought I got a kick out of the way he was. And one thing I was always disappointed about was that his wrestling, that part of him, that wrestling part of him, never really carried over into his movies because he's been doing DTV actioners. But one thing I've always liked about Piper is that and I think one reason why I would like to see him whenever he was on, because I forgot to mention when I was in college, we watched the WCW as a joke. We would get a kick out of like every Monday night they would have Monday Night Nitro, and then they would have movies on after, like this movie. Movies like this one would be on after, and so that was like a fun thing to just kind of laugh at, like what they were, Hulk Hogan saying, "Just too sweet," and all of that goofiness, and we would get a kick out of that kind of thing. But yeah, I think to really get into it, I think you either have to suspend belief on some levels, or like Brian was saying, it's almost like a religion. You have to really find huge charismatic people, and I almost feel like you don't quite have as many as you used to. You don't have the Pipers that you used to. And maybe you do, and I just haven't found them yet. But someone like Piper, in a way, he got me into watching wrestling. Because he was such a great heel that I wanted to see Hogan beat him. And then, of course, later on, I grew to love him anyway, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And a religion, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
I can't argue that. Yeah, I tried to get back into it when Sting was big.
Yes.
Just because I had some friends and they were really big fans, and I was like, well, and they used to watch it all the time, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot again. I just couldn't relive the magic. It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Although I got to tell you, since I keep seeing all these tweets about it every time something happens, I'm like, well, maybe I should try watching it again.
I know.
Because, maybe I could get into it now.
Yes.
I haven't done it.
Well, it's funny because when I went to watch this movie tonight, they had ads for the Deadpool Red Band trailer, the Deadpool comic book, and of course I can't watch it because I don't have a YouTube account, so I can't prove my age on there. So I am not allowed to watch the adult version of the Red Band trailer. So I don't even know what the real. But anyway, when I was collecting comics in the early '90s, Deadpool he made his first appearance, I think, around '91, '92. That was when Rob Liefeld drew him out. Do you remember Rob Liefeld did? Remember they did those 501 commercials, and they're like, "What do you do in your 501s?" And I remember they showed him drawing X-Force comics.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I was like, "Oh my God, comics on Levi's commercials." But that was his creation was Deadpool, and of course he went to form Image Comics because he gave up all of his characters. But I always loved Deadpool. He was like kind of my geeky one. And in the early 2000s, I got back into comics for a little bit, and I tried to get all of the Deadpools. They ended up in my parents' basement and all died a slow, horrible, mildewy death. But I still get this feeling about Deadpool, and now I play this Marvel Puzzle Quest game on my phone, which gets me geeky about comic book things. And I see Deadpool on there, and then seeing this thing tonight, I'm like, oh, I want to kind of see the Deadpool movie. I'm kind of curious to see what it is. And I think
it looks pretty good. I'm kind of sick of superhero movies. I actually like comics. I like superheroes, and on the whole, but I feel like I've just been saturated with it.
Yeah.
Like every time you turn around, there's another one. And then, of course, Fantastic Four is starting this weekend, and I have no interest whatsoever.
No, I don't need
seeing that film. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, I don't need the reboot. What I need is I need Hulu to bring back the old cartoon from the 70s.
There you go.
Yes.
But I watched the Deadpool trailer, and I have actually been, before the trailer came out, like a long time. I've been kind of waiting for this one because I think Ryan Reynolds perfectly embodies the Deadpool character. I mean, I think that he was the optimal choice for this, and so as soon as I knew it was coming, I was like, this is gonna be good. If for nothing else, I think Ryan Reynolds will just bring it. And the trailer, it looks really good. I mean, it just I'm actually excited about seeing this one. So that's something, because I wasn't even excited about seeing the new Avengers, and I loved Avengers. I did, and and I was just like, we went to see it, and it was okay, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I have to see it, But this one, but Deadpool, I think, looks really fun. So I'm looking forward to that, which is the exact opposite of how I feel about Batman versus Superman.
Right. I was gonna say,
Superman versus Batman, whichever.
Yeah, I was gonna say it.
No.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. I know all of those. Like this one, it kind of got me geeked, and it was funny because when you talked about Sting, and having friends that were fans of Sting, it reminded me, a part of why I liked those old wrestlers was that they felt like comic book characters, like comic book heroes or villains. Like they had this sense that they could do almost superhuman things, and that they were, you would root for, like you'd look at a Sting, and it's like, man, Sting would get into the ring, and he would battle some guy, and you'd say, oh, Sting's gonna take this guy down, and of course the WCW guys were a little bit cool for me anyway, because at the time I was all WWF, and so it was new, but I think that's, if you can get that kind of geeky sense, I don't, is geek the right word? You get geeked up for
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I
I
think.
mean, you can be geeky about anything, I think so.
Yeah, and so I think, like you said, like with the Deadpool one, I think it played on that a little bit. Like, oh yeah, Deadpool is awesome. I want to see that, you know. And I think the same thing about Sting. You know, I remember when he came back in the WCW and he had like the crow makeup.
Yes.
Just with the long hair, and he'd have the bat, and
Yes.
yeah, even that I kind of like that. I was like, yeah, no, this works for me. I like this Sting. This is cool, and it kind of got me watching again. I wanted to see what Sting was going to do, and so I think if you can, you know, if they. You know, I don't know if there's probably people listening. There have to be wrestling fans listening to the podcast who will chime in on Facebook and let us know, you know, if there's something out there for us that used to watch wrestling. But I feel like there's a lot of go away heat in some of the characters now. It feels like when I watch it, it's all go away heat. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
Oh, maybe I should start paying better attention to the feeds,
Hmm.
and I don't know. Maybe I should just start watching it. Maybe there is a Piper out there that
Hmm.
someone who can keep me engaged and keep me interested,
Hmm.
just because of his personality more than anything. I mean, I just love him. He sparkled. He shined.
Hmm.
He I don't know. I just always felt, and I never met him. I have no idea, but I always felt like he seemed like he just at heart was a really good guy.
Hmm.
And I don't have anything to base that on. So I could be completely wrong. Like he could have been like some kind of Nazi or something. I don't know because I have no idea what he did in his personal life. But I, for some reason, just always felt like he seemed like a really good guy. So I just liked him. So I don't know. Maybe there is somebody out there now who resonates that, and I'm missing out on something awesome.
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it,
Right. I
but
know.
I just don't know if they have the soul that they had,
Yeah, if
back
anybody
then.
could be that down to earth. I mean, I was listening to his podcast with the Sklar brothers, and the thing that struck me was that, you know, here they are, the Sklar brothers, you know, they were born in like the early 70s as well. I think like 71, 72. So they grew up with wrestling as well, and, you know, wrestling was a big part of their lives when they were younger. And so they're just like loving the fact that they've got Roddy Piper sitting in their studio with them, telling them stories about, the old days of wrestling, or, you know, the 80s, and you know, some of the things that happened to him. And here's Piper saying, "Oh, you know, I don't want to bore you guys. I have another story. I don't want to bore you with this, or I hope I'm not boring you." And they're like, "What do you mean you're not boring us?" You know, but that's how Piper, you know, even though he kind of has a sense, he knows that these guys are here who, you know, and I think maybe that's what it was. Maybe he was afraid that, like, when people got to see the real Piper, they might say, "Oh, you know, that's not, you know, this is boring, or this isn't, you know, this isn't as good as the Piper's Pit guy." But they were loving it. They were eating up, you know, and me listening to it too. I'm like, I'm eating all of it up and loving it. And so I think that's what it was. I think he was just very humble, and you know, we don't. We don't have that as much anymore. We don't have someone that can be that charismatic and that exciting to watch on TV or watch in a movie, who can also be that down to earth and that humble, and really make you feel warm when you listen to him in an interview or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, I guess, you know, at this stage we you know, I guess we can come to the conclusion here on this one. It is available for free on YouTube. You know, for me, it's a thumbs up because, again, it is a straight ahead actioner for people that like early 90s, late 80s, early 90s bad DTV action. And chances are, if you're coming to the DTV connoisseur to look up movies, that's probably the kind of thing you're into. So I think it has that cachet. Did I just say cachet? I think I did,
You
didn't I?
you did, yeah,
I
you
yeah,
did.
I have to apologize for that. I should. It has that. It has that great sense, though. Has that kind of film. But Jamie, from your mind, from your standpoint, maybe as you know, someone who's not into musicals the way I'm into musicals, so to speak. What did you think of?
Well, I think that if you are a big Piper fan, or hell, a big Billy Blanks fan, and you haven't seen it, then you should just check it out. For that reason, um, yeah, Piper's fun. I loved him, but really, it's like I said, it's like every other generic action film out there, and if there is a box, they ticked it. It was just, um, I don't know. It's nothing you haven't seen before.
Right.
Nothing you haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were just looking for an interesting action film that you haven't seen before, this really isn't going to be it because
Yeah.
you've seen it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm saying I would only watch this if you feel the need to complete your Roddy Piper your catalog or your Billy Blanks catalog. Other than that,
Yeah.
I think it's missable. But
Yeah. It's one of those ones that I think it's just I think you're kind of in that mode where you just love this kind of movie. It does the trick. But yeah, if you're kind of like you said, if you're looking for something exceptional or something that's gonna I think it probably could have done with more Piper. That may have been the trick that would have made it a little bit more so. But like you said, it's very paint by numbers. So you're going into this with this is like wrestling from the 70s. This is guys in singlets and in underwear and boots coming out there, flicking their mullets and just throwing each other around. Very, very basic stuff. This is not your modern wrestling with you know, steel cages and chairs and whatnot.
this is like the Lawler.
Right, exactly. 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 Well, Jamie, so it's been a couple weeks. What have you been up to in the podcasting world and other projects?
Well, not a whole lot in podcasting.
Well, I think we just lost Jamie. I don't know what happened there. Let's see if we can get her back. Oh, we're getting her back as we speak.
And that would be Baby Cat.
Okay, that's all right. I was giving everybody I was giving everybody a play-by-play. I was like,
She decided I had been on the phone long enough.
All right.
So walked across it. Click.
All right. Brian said I'm still here. I guess maybe letting us know that it wasn't the internet.
No, it was just her.
It was just.
So, of course, we still have Evil episodes coming out. That comes out roughly every 2 weeks or so, and that has been regular. I did start my stint on Cinema Beef, and I'll be recording another episode of that tonight, where we're doing. It's a Kiss show. We're doing the new Scooby Doo and Kiss cartoon that came out, plus Kiss Meets Fan of the Park and Detroit Rock City. We're covering all of those on this new show that's going to be coming out. So
nice.
That should be interesting. Brian's going to be sitting in on that. In other news, this is really exciting. I know I talked about Brian's new book that came out, Fleshlight Smoke, on the show before, or last show, I'm not sure. But I just found out yesterday that an anthology just came out in which there is a story that we co-wrote together. And the name of the anthology is A Lonely and Curious Country. It is a mythos anthology, so for Lovecraft fans out there, this is right in your wheelhouse and right in your ballpark. So it's available on Amazon. It's from Ulthar Press. And again, the book is called A Lonely and Curious Country. And the story that we wrote is called Afterbirth. So check out that book and read our story. And then if you do, I'd love to know what you think. Or drop a review on Amazon, or just let me know personally what you think about it. So kind of excited about that. That's fun times. I haven't gotten my contributor copy yet, so I haven't gotten to read all the other stories, but I know most of the writers that are in that book, and they're all really solid. So it should be pretty good. I hope I didn't drag it down.
Oh, well, congratulations. I know you didn't drag it down. Congratulations to you and Brian both. Now, what was the name of the book again?
A Lonely and Curious Country.
A Lonely and Curious Country. So people can go right onto Amazon and look that up.
Oh, yeah. It's right there on Amazon. Or you can go to Ulthar Press, go to their website, and they should be able to link you there, I think. And then check out what else they're doing, what else they've got going on. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. And this is, like I said, this is a story we did together. So it's really fun for us. We have both of our names on this, and it's just it's exciting. It's really exciting.
That is really great news. That's really cool. Contrasting that with me, who is back to the whole lot of nothing thing. We did get.
But I saw that you reviewed Legendary.
I did. We got Legendary up. We did get that one up finally. The one I want to I want to get to next is Wolf Cop. I feel like Wolf Cop, Zombievers, those are a couple that I need to get blog posts up. We sit here on this show and we talk about bad, these horror movies that Hollywood pumps out that are crap, that we, and then we get these great ones. We want to try to give them more buzz. And, I can't complain about not, these movies not getting enough buzz if I'm not doing my part as well to kind of get the word out. Not even kind of get the word out, but to actually get the word out. We can remove kind of completely from the sentence. And so Wolf Cop I'm looking to do next, and then after Wolf Cop, we'll do Zombievers. So those are the next two. When they're going to come is an excellent question. Hopefully in sooner rather than later. I was excited to actually get Legendary out. It was one of those times where it was just like, the night we had done our podcast, I think 2 weeks ago, and I just had some time and I had it all pretty much set. I'm just like, let's do it. Let's drive it out. I don't have that same drive tonight, so that's not going to happen. But just the same, hopefully soon those two will go up. And again, you can always go to the blog. I shouldn't say go to the blog looking for a blog post, because if you do that, you'll probably be going quite a bit and not seeing anything. But always keep an eye on Twitter and Facebook. That's where we get the announcements out for those. So that is about it. But I guess that puts a wrap on this episode as well. Jamie, any final words about the post or the movie or anything?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, I'm not drinking alcohol right now, but this is a toast to Roddy Piper. You really were one of the great ones. I think we're all going to miss him a lot, because he really brought a lot to the table. And even now, as he's been still kind of he hasn't been doing much as far as films or anything, but what he gave us was really great, and he's really going to be missed. And he did go too soon. 61 is not that old. It's very young, and to go suddenly like that is a shame. So Roddy, Mr. Piper, we're going to miss you, and really it was really great to thank you for everything you gave us. So I'm definitely sad to see him go. It was very shocking news, and so it was good to be able to do this kind of tribute to him tonight.
I second every bit of that, and I will miss him too.
All right, perfect. Well, Jamie, again, it was a great show. Great to be back together doing the show again, and we'll see what happens next week. We'll see what we get into next week for the direct-to-video podcast.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right. See you all next week, everyone.
Attention shoppers, we now have taste in the bread aisle. Dave's Killer Bread. That's right, an organic bread that's no longer a sedative for your taste buds. Dave's Killer Bread is on a mission to make the most of the loaf, to rid the world of GMOs, high fructose corn syrup, and artificial ingredients, and plant the seeds of good in all that they bake. Killer taste, killer texture, and always organic. Dave's Killer Bread. Bread amplified.